So Ciaran should be joining me now via Zoom. So can you hear me, Ciaran?
I certainly can, man. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly clear. Thanks very much for joining us.
No worries, Dylan. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, man. And thank you for playing the songs. Ah.
Thanks a million. So it's my pleasure. I suppose just to kind of get things started, can you give us a bit of an introduction to yourself, to your music? I suppose give us the whole spiel, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, spiel. Yeah, man. So basically, I'm kind of an alternative hip hop pop artist. Originally from West Cork. Of all places, the hotbed for hip hop talent. And essentially, yeah, I started making music back in 2017. And
Yeah.
I put my debut EP out. And since then, I've been really lucky to, just like some amazing reactions and play some amazing gigs. I was lucky enough to make a playlist like New Music Friday UK, named Irish Times Artist of the Week, and play industry showcases like Ireland Music Week, Music Cork, and kind of even support people like Laboom, Sean Kingston, and just yeah, man, it's just been a kind of amazing journey, and obviously with amazing support from people
Nice.
like yourself at Wired FM, it's been brilliant, man. Just yeah, that's what I'm kind of about.
Yeah,
Just
so there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, you've done a lot
yeah.
in quite a short amount of time, to be fair. I suppose, what's your history of music? Like, what got you interested in music, and what got you started performing in the way that you are now?
I suppose, geez, like I used to be a big fan of kind of writing poetry and
Yeah.
writing short stories. And what kind of drew me into kind of hip hop was just kind of putting that over vibrations. And I suppose there was like all my friends were in kind of bands and stuff like that. And
Okay.
I wanted to be like, nah, I'm not going the typical band route. And I was a huge hip hop fan. And so that kind of drew me to music initially, and then after getting over good large portion of stage fright. I started performing on stage, and kind of my first gig was actually like it was an industry showcase at like Music Cork, and it just kind of threw me in the deep end, and I kind of loved playing gigs since, and just yeah, and just lots of good music and vibrations and stuff.
Okay, that's interesting. You mentioned there that a lot of friends of yours that were in bands. Do you think that there's a very strong music scene around the West Cork area, and did that kind of influence you to maybe give it a try?
Yeah, man, 100%. I mean, geez, like in West Cork, even from like I'd say like 11 onwards, everyone we be kind of you probably know yourself. Everyone has like the sing songs at the
Yeah.
pubs, and everyone like on their way like back from like GA matches and stuff like that. Everyone is singing some random song. But essentially, yeah, there's kind of like there is a massive tradition here. And I mean, like the big things for me, like even in primary and kind of secondary schools, it was like there was usually like a gig of a local band that would be playing at Christmas, and that would be the big moment.
Okay.
And like our entire school year, and when you see stuff like that, you just can't help but kind of be inspired by people making music and trying music out. So definitely, yeah, huge kind of vibe over here, and like all through the towns, there's just loads of amazing artists kind of popping up, mostly because there's nothing else to do in West Cork. But
Okay.
yeah.
I suppose though, in terms of your own music, obviously it gave us kind of a rough introduction to it there. But how would you kind of describe it, and who are your influences?
Oh man, I think. Well, I suppose in terms of influences, the kind of the weird thing about myself, like I've a huge affinity for like 90s hip hop, kind
Yeah.
of Jay-Z, and that was kind of my rebellious stage. I know a lot of
Okay.
people go like emo, but I was like getting into 90s hip hop,
Right.
and still a huge fan. So like Jay-Z, Nas, even like a bit of like Kanye West, and more recently like you have Drake, you have Loyal Carner, all those lads, and then I suppose my own kind of vibe was yeah, it was just when I was kind of writing down, I was influenced by a lot of pop as well,
Yeah.
and I wanted to, in terms of describing my music, I think it's a mixture of every song's kind of different, but it's a mixture of all the pop influences like Lord
Okay.
and people like that, and then also with hip hop, and hopefully combining with some Irish kind of literature influences as well. So yeah, it's a mix.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I was going to mention that, it seems like a very broad spectrum of genres. Like there's a bit of hip hop, there's a bit of pop, a bit of rap, a bit of like lo-fi stuff in there. So do you think that you have would you say that you have a very kind of broad taste in music?
Yeah, man, 100%. And I think, that's kind of one of my favorite things about music is that you can take like influence from everywhere. Like even yesterday, man, I was just listening to like, I don't know, like pop music, like Carly Rae Jepsen or even the Coronas and bands like that. And then
Yeah.
at the same time, I switch it over and listen to some hip hop or people like, Kojak and Reggie Snow and all the
Hmm.
amazing artists we have here. And I think there's definitely kind of a broad range. And what you can do is like, what I love kind of trying to do in even like production style and vocal stuff is just trying to take from everywhere, man, and kind of figure out my own kind of style, and it's every
Yeah.
track you figure out something. So yeah, that's kind of where it comes from, really.
So then when it came to getting into a studio setting, how did that happen? And what was the process like?
I think for me, I was really, really lucky in that kind of my it was actually a local studio, so we have an amazing kind of studio. Our local producer, his name was Brian Casey, and Brian is a really established musician in his own right. Like he has like a
Yeah.
million streams on Spotify and stuff, and he essentially he was kind of he was setting up a studio over in Clonakilty, like, which is obviously a town close to here.
Mm.
And my parents actually got in touch with him, and they're like, hey, like, because I was actually just terrified of the thought of recording vocals, in front of someone or putting something out there. And my parents kind of gave me a nudge in terms of they got me a voucher for him, and then they said, like, go over, have a chat with him. And obviously he makes kind of folk music,
Okay.
but what was really interesting, he brought like a fresh approach to it. And from that moment, I was just kind of like, oh wow, being in the studio in such a supportive environment is great, and you kind of want to be there as much as possible. So that's kind of where it stemmed from.
So, you mentioned there that the producer kind of brought a different dynamic to the whole thing. How much do you take influence from other people or kind of take advice or, yeah, I suppose how much of your work is kind of influenced by those around you?
I mean, a good portion. I mean, some of the kind of best advice I've ever gotten is, when you are putting, and I mean, this is kind of for any artist trying to out there, putting music out. I mean, firstly, you've got to be happy with it yourself.
Yeah.
And whenever you approach someone, I mean, you kind of have to weigh, what you think of what their opinion may be. If you say, kind of you reach out to someone, saying like, oh, like highlighting, how could this be better? They're obviously going to find some ways of fault. But I think, it is hugely influenced. Like you are influenced, but just it's making sure you find the right opinions. And I'm extremely lucky in that. Like I know numerous producers and even people in music courses. Like obviously, in Limerick, there's some fantastic music courses and Cork and Munster, and just even those people who are kind of with it every day. Kind of a mixture between the people who do work in music and then people who have absolutely no interest in like
Yeah.
the technical side of music, like just regular fans. And it's kind of just getting that mixture of people you trust and who'll be honest with you. Like that's really it, good and bad.
So it's important then, you think, to kind of get the opinions of a broad spectrum of people from different backgrounds and that kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. And I think, when you do reach out, because again, at the end of the day, with kind of how everything's structured, a lot of people will be just putting in their earphones and kind of, they'll be hearing it's how they react to it the first time. But then obviously you want that technical nuance as well, like, turn up the hi-hat here and stuff you might not even hear due to listeners fatigue. So yeah, definitely, man, a broad spectrum, but of people, will be honest rather than them saying, oh, it's great or
Yeah.
it's terrible kind of thing.
So, you mentioned in your bio that that you kind of base your music on your rural upbringing in West Cork. How do you kind of bring personal experiences and personal thoughts and stuff into your music?
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously that's a hugely tricky thing for any artist because in some cases it can be difficult to bring your personal experiences. But I suppose, it is kind of maybe taking experiences or nights you've kind of like nights you've been out or people you've been with or been around. And I mean, for me, it's usually I'll take a memory that I have or something that I noticed from like an aspect of the night or like something like that and kind of like blow it up in terms of just making it bigger and kind of seeing like ways I can talk about it
Okay.
without anything kind of too direct.
Yeah. So, like, you released your debut EP called Sunset. It came out in 2018. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what was the experience like releasing like that? Did you have trouble with like the business side of things? Like, did you learn anything new? I suppose what was the whole process behind releasing it? In particular, what was that like?
It was such a great experience, man. And I mean, when you talk about stage fright and being terrified to put yourself out there, like I wouldn't even, when I did release it, I wouldn't set up any social media pages, and I was very kind of just completely nervous.
Okay.
But what I did was, I actually kind of framed it as a show. So I essentially sent invites to all kind of the various blogs and stuff like that, and it actually did really well. Like I was lucky enough that I was named like Nyler Nine, who's an amazing music blogger, named me as kind of Irish Times Artist of the Week. It got radio play in 98 FM. It, all these different things, and it ended up getting playlisted by Spotify. And I had no kind of social media presence, so I know people get worried about their following and likes and stuff like that. But sometimes if you just put music out there, and kind of package it in a cool way, then it can have a lot of positive kind of energy that comes back to you. And so that was really one thing I learned. And I mean, for a first release, the business side of music is obviously it's a tricky thing, but I think what we're lucky in Ireland is that there is now, like in this current climate, there's so much support behind Irish music, and it's just kind of just putting yourself out there. I mean, look, if you kind of go in there managing your expectations and realize that it might take a while to build, or even like, just kind of get all your kind of, one thing I would probably improve is maybe get my visual kind of ducks in a line as well, that people could, maybe even more music videos. But there is really good people out there that will play your music, and just put yourself out there and do it in the right way, man. Research. Really.
Yeah. So So do you have any kind of opinion on what the rap or hip hop scene is like in Ireland now, or I suppose the music industry more broadly? Do you have much of an opinion as to what the scene is like? Is there many artists in that particular genre? Do you think that it's getting more popular? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, geez, even from the short time I've been putting out music, like it is absolutely exploded. I mean, you look at people from, lads like Teddy Rex, Pat Lagoon, Jesus, even like the amazing kind of the scene in Limerick right now. I mean, you've obviously Denise, the Rusanganu family, like PX Music, all these amazing artists coming through, and kind of just like the scene is absolutely blown up. And I think what's really interesting in terms of how kind of hip hop kind of resonates with an Irish audience, that we are kind of we love our poetry and our literature, and I think that's just kind of an extension of it. And you see people like Alex Goff and Kojak and Reggie and all these lads doing and women as well, obviously doing like amazing internationally, and I think there's a good scene there where people are kind of crossing over. But yeah, I think like the music industry is in a good spot. I do think we probably need hopefully we can get more female kind of producers and engineers into it as well. But yeah, I think we're in a really strong spot.
So looking forward, what are your plans for the future?
The future, man. Oh God. I mean, obviously we're living in this one thing I'm missing is gigging, and that's one thing hopefully we can figure out how to get back into. But right now I'm working on my second EP actually, and I think trying to I have a bunch of kind of exciting collaborations coming out, and I think really for me it's all around this EP and kind of this concept that I'm going with, and it's really exciting. And obviously Vamos, kind of the first single, is like in a kind of where I'm at musically, and I think getting out that first EP, because we don't know when gigs are gonna be back. Like my last gig was in, like, apart from a few live streams, was in February at Cyprus Avenue Rag Week, like Rag Week in UCC, and like I suppose it's for any musician out there. I think it's just crafting, like now is probably the time to craft your sound, and I think that's really where I'm at. And I'm hoping around February next year that we're going to be back with like the single, so I'm very excited, the big single really. So yeah, that's my plans.
So we're almost out of time, I'm afraid. I'd like to thank you very much for coming on. Just to finish things off, if people are looking online, where should they look to find you?
Well, Darce on Facebook, Darce out on Twitter, and then my Instagram is I just changed it. It's Darce _Vader _ Insta, and then just Darce on Spotify. You can find me there and give me a follow, please. Dylan, man, thank you so much for having me. This is absolutely unreal, crack.
It's my pleasure. Thanks a million for coming on. So best of luck with the new EP, and hope to hear from you again very soon.
Thanks, Dylan. Have a great day, man.
Thanks, same to you. Best of luck.